All right, let's dive into today's news.
Should be a busy one.
First up, DeepSeek. That Chinese AI has been everywhere, but not always for good reasons.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff, but that also means it can be misused.
Like how hackers are using its popularity to trick people.
Right, they disguise malicious Python packages as DeepSeek tools.
Developers probably thought they were getting a head start.
Exactly, downloaded them without realizing they were installing malware.
And to make it worse, they used an AI assistant to write the code.
That's really something, using AI to create malware.
So how do we balance innovation with security, especially with AI becoming more popular?
Good question. DeepSeek's having other problems too. Leaks, people criticizing how it's used. Texas even banned it.
Makes you think about responsible AI development, for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, moving on to a story that's causing a stir in Washington. Elon Musk's DOGE.
The Department of Government Efficiency.
It's been raising eyebrows, especially about cybersecurity.
A lot of concern there. Musk and his team have access to sensitive government systems.
Personnel data, security clearances, even classified information, right?
That's right, and it's led to some incidents already. Locked out civil servants, spoofed emails.
Spoofed emails, wow.
Even a forced resignation.
That's worrying. What could happen if a private company has this much access?
Could be malware infections, authentication exploits, even data manipulation.
People are saying it might even break the law.
Some are even saying there might be Privacy Act infringements.
Sounds like someone's moving too fast and breaking things.
And potentially risking national security.
Okay, let's talk about something less dramatic but still crucial. That PCI DSS 4.0 deadline.
March 31st, 2025, coming up fast.
Businesses need to protect that cardholder data.
Absolutely. PCI DSS 4.0 has some new requirements for that.
Like what?
Well, a big one is anti-phishing, DMRC, SPF, DKIM.
Those are a mouthful.
Basically, they help make sure emails are actually from who they say they are.
So that's how to prevent those spoofed emails.
Exactly.
What else is new?
Multi-factor authentication, but it has to be replay resistant now. Hackers can't just steal the code and use it themselves.
Smart.
And say goodbye to weak passwords.
What's the new standard?
12 characters minimum, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and symbols.
Makes sense. Anything less is probably too easy to guess these days.
That's right.
What if businesses don't comply?
Big fines, could be millions.
Ouch. Better to invest in security now than pay later.
I'd say so.
Now let's talk about abandoned Amazon S3 buckets.
Those forgotten online storage spaces?
Turns out they're full of sensitive data.
Software updates, financial information, even government documents.
Really, they just leave that stuff out there.
Sometimes it's forgotten, sometimes neglected, but it's a big risk.
And someone found security patches in there.
Yep, that's the kind of thing that could lead to a supply chain attack.
Especially if someone downloads what they think is a legitimate update.
And it turns out to be malicious.
Gets worse, some of these downloads were coming from government agencies.
Even military networks and cybersecurity companies.
That's scary. Shows how interconnected everything is these days.
And how easy it is for information to end up in the wrong hands.
Okay, let's shift gears to cybersecurity ROI.
Gotta make those security investments count.
Especially now. So how do we get the most out of those investments?
One way is to measure risk in dollars and cents, show the financial impact.
Makes sense. Business leaders speak that language.
Exactly, and scenario-based risk assessments are helpful too.
What's the worst that could happen, that kind of thing?
Right, helps you prioritize your efforts.
What about saving money?
Sharing threat intelligence with other companies is a big one.
Strengths in numbers, right?
Exactly. You get a better view of the threats out there without spending a fortune.
And AI can help too, right?
Definitely. Generative AI can handle those repetitive tasks, free up your team for more important stuff.
Seems like AI can really change the game in cybersecurity.
It has that potential.
We've covered a lot today, from AI vulnerabilities to abandoned data buckets.
And everything in between.
We'll be back after a short break to continue our deep dive into today's top cybersecurity news stories.
Honeypots, they're a pretty interesting tactic.
Honeypots, what are those?
It's like setting a trap for hackers, a system that looks tempting, but is really just there to lure them in.
So you can watch what they do.
Exactly. You learn their tactics, see how they operate, and you can gather evidence too.
So it's like a controlled environment for studying the enemy.
That's a good way to put it. Helps you understand their methods and find vulnerabilities.
Speaking of vulnerabilities, there's that new ransomware attack hitting AWS S3 buckets.
That one's a big concern. Those buckets are used by a lot of companies.
And they're being targeted by ransomware now.
Yep, encrypting data and demanding payment.
If they hit those S3 buckets, it could disrupt a lot of businesses.
It could. Those buckets often hold software updates, critical files, even security patches.
So if those are locked up, it could have a ripple effect.
Exactly. Delayed updates, service outages, maybe even more attacks.
What can businesses do to protect themselves?
Access control is key. Make sure only the right people can get in.
And keep those permissions up to date.
Right. And encryption is crucial, too, for data at rest and in transit.
Makes it harder for attackers to get to the data.
Even if they get into the buckets.
So it's all about layers of security.
Absolutely.
Let's go back to those malicious Python packages, the ones disguised as DeepSeek tools.
Remember, those were designed to steal sensitive data.
API keys, database credentials, all that stuff.
Developers might not realize they're downloading malware.
So even with reputable sources, you got to be careful.
Always a good idea. Look at the source. Is it a trusted developer?
Well,
Check for community feedback. See if anyone else has had problems.
it's like checking reviews before you buy something online.
Exactly. A little skepticism can go a long way.
Let's talk about those new password rules. 12 characters minimum.
PCI DSS 4.0 is getting serious about passwords.
Why the change?
7 characters just isn't enough anymore. Technology's gotten too good at cracking them.
So hackers can brute force their way in pretty easily.
If the password's too short.
Yep.
But 12 characters, that's going to be tougher. Exponentially tougher. It slows those attacks way down.
So longer passwords, more protection.
Well, that's the idea.
Back to Elon Musk and DOGE, that's been a hot topic.
A lot of concern about their access to government systems.
People are worried about security risks and ethical problems.
Right, there's potential for conflicts of interest, security breaches, all sorts of things.
It's a lot of access, personnel data, security clearances, even classified systems.
Some people are saying it's too much power for a private company.
Especially with those concerns about Musk's other businesses.
And the team itself, it's mostly young engineers, maybe not enough experience for this kind of work.
Sounds like a recipe for trouble.
There's definitely a risk there.
Let's talk about something a little different. Storytelling and cybersecurity training.
It's a good way to make it more engaging. People remember stories.
Instead of just dry facts and figures.
Right, you make it relatable, people connect with it more.
Like telling a story about someone who got hacked because of a weak password.
Exactly. Makes it real, makes it stick.
Speaking of real, there was that cyber attack that hit that big retailer.
That ransomware attack, that was a bad one.
Store closures, website outages, big financial losses.
Shows what can happen if you're not prepared.
We didn't have a good incident response plan.
It's like a fire drill for your digital systems.
You got to practice what to do if you get attacked.
Containment, recovery, communication, all of that.
So what can other businesses learn from this?
Keep your incident response plan up to date. Threats are always changing.
And train your employees?
A lot of these attacks rely on tricking people, phishing, and social engineering.
So employee training is really important.
Absolutely. It's like a human firewall.
Okay, from incident response to storytelling, we've covered a lot.
A lot of ground and a lot to think about.
We'll be back after a short break to continue our deep dive into the latest cybersecurity news.
Scam emails, always a problem.
It feels like we talk about them all the time.
You're right, but they're getting sneakier, looking more and more real.
Like they're from a real business or the government.
Exactly, trying to trick you into giving away information.
So phishing attacks, still a big deal.
They can cause a lot of damage, identity theft, financial losses, even malware.
So how do we avoid falling for these scams?
Be careful with emails you weren't expecting, especially if they're asking for personal details.
Or if they want you to click a link.
Always check the sender's address carefully.
And if it looks suspicious,
Don't click anything, and watch out for urgent or threatening language.
trying to scare you into doing something without thinking.
Right, if it feels off, it probably is.
So I'm not sure.
Contact the sender directly, just to be safe.
Good advice. Now, there's that vulnerability in Netgear routers.
Affecting some access points, too.
What's the problem?
Attackers might be able to run code on those devices remotely.
That's bad.
It is, and it shows why keeping your firmware updated is so important.
Patch now or pay later, right?
Exactly. Attackers are always looking for systems that haven't been patched.
So what should Netgear users do?
Netgear has released updates to fix the problem, install them ASAP.
And in general.
Turn on automatic updates if you can. It's the easiest way to stay protected.
Let's talk about application security.
Often overlooked, but really important.
Especially now that businesses rely so much on software.
If your applications aren't secure, it can cost you a lot of money.
How so?
Data breaches. For one, attackers can get in and steal sensitive information.
Customer data, financial records, that kind of thing.
And that can lead to fines, lawsuits, damage to your reputation.
Not to mention the cost of downtime if your systems go offline.
That can disrupt your whole business. Lost revenue, lost productivity.
So application security is about protecting the whole business.
Absolutely. Secure applications are crucial for protecting data, keeping customers happy, and keeping your business running smoothly.
Speaking of staying informed, there's a new threat intelligence report out.
Lots of good information in there about the latest cyber attacks.
What kind of things are they seeing?
One thing is that attacks are getting more sophisticated.
Using things like AI and machine learning.
That's right. They're always finding new ways to get in.
So how do we keep up?
You need to stay ahead of the curve, invest in new technologies, train your people, and be proactive.
It's all about staying informed and taking action.
Exactly. And that's what we've tried to do today, give you the information you need to stay safe online.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into cybersecurity.
We'll see you next time with more news and insights.
Until then, stay vigilant, stay curious, and stay safe online.